Hello and welcome to the PSC Fit podcast. I'm your host and coach and fellow PSC warrior, Thomas Fowler. Today we are covering something I don't see talked about nearly enough in the PSC community: unintentional weight loss. Now, this is the kind that happens when you're losing it without choosing to. And then we're going to look at what's actually driving it. So, just for transparency, and I want to be crystal clear with everyone, this is not a weight loss advice episode. This is an understanding your body episode. So, if you're looking at this episode for weight loss, turn it off now. And yeah, I'll be as blunt and as crystal clear as I can be, because that's not what this episode's about. So if you do want to understand your body that little bit better, please stick around and we'll get into today's episode. So, have you lost weight since your PSC diagnosis without trying? Not through dieting, not through a structured training program, just weight coming off gradually and without any real obvious explanation. If that answer is yes, you're not alone, and it's worth understanding why it happens. Because unintentional weight loss with PSC isn't just the number on a scale, it tells you something like what's going on internally. And knowing what it's telling you and how you need to react and respond to it. So for some real kind of context here, what year are we in now? 2026. December, late November and throughout December of 2025, I had lost around 8 kilos of weight within around a 6 to 8 week period, which was tough to say the least. So I'm just throwing that at you just so I can kind of again reiterate the point that I genuinely know how it feels and how genuinely shit it makes you feel. So I guess the first thing is why it happens. Okay. Unintentional weight loss with PSC can happen through several different ways, and they often work together, and understanding which one applies to you is going to be the first step in order to address it properly. Okay. The first one being malabsorption. So most of us PSC warriors know that PSC disrupts bile flow, and bile is essential for absorbing fat from the food that we eat. Now, when that bile flow is impaired, fat passes through your digestive system largely unabsorbed. So this is called fat malabsorption. And because fat is the most calorie dense macronutrient, to be fair, it's got 9 calories. I don't know why I pointed to my one finger. It should have been that 9. 9 calories per gram versus your carbs and your protein, which have 4. Even a moderate fat malabsorption can significantly reduce the calories that your body's actually absorbing from food. So you can genuinely be eating well and eating plenty of food with a decent variety, but you're still going to be in a calorie deficit that you didn't choose to do, because your gut just isn't absorbing everything that it should. And this is why some PSC warriors might experience sort of pale, oily, difficult to flush poop. That in itself is unabsorbed fat leaving the body. And that is a signal that's worth paying attention to, and 100% worth mentioning to your hepatology team. I'm going to give the actual wording of it a stab. I am awful at all of these medical terms, but it's statiorrhea. I've probably butchered it. There's no probably. I've butchered it, but effectively it's those loose, oily, like pale, difficult to flush poops. The sort of second thing I feel could be quite obvious, but potentially not, is a reduced appetite. So PSC in itself and its associated symptoms, the nausea, gut discomfort, bloating, the abdominal pain, certainly within like the right upper quadrant, excuse me, can significantly reduce your appetite. Oh, excuse me. Talking of bloating, I'm fucking bloated and winded. So when obviously eating is going to be uncomfortable or unpredictable, your natural response is always going to be to eat less. And obviously eating less over time is going to indicate weight loss. So again, you're not choosing to eat less. Well, you are, but you're not at the same time, because you don't want to exacerbate those feelings of nausea, a pissed off gut, bloating, and those abdominal pains. So, and another thing as well, there are some people with PSC will experience like an altered taste and like early set, I can never pronounce it, satiety. So basically you get fuller quicker. I'm so shit at these medical terms, so please don't come after me, medical peeps, because I'll probably just cry. So yeah. Where was I even going with that? But yeah, effectively, the under-eating element of it over time is obviously going to help you lose weight unintentionally. That was number 2, wasn't it? So number 3, the increased metabolic demand. And again, it's chronic inflammation, which is a feature of PSC that is unavoidable. What it does also, it increases your body's metabolic demand. So your immune system is running an absolute overdrive, and that in itself is going to consume energy. And managing that systemic inflammation is going to consume your energy. Your liver's working harder. And it's working harder than it, in some instances, it's working harder and taking more energy than what your body is able to produce. And when your body's in that state, I guess, all of it raises your calorie requirement. So the amount that you sort of might need just to maintain weight, if your intake doesn't match that sort of that increased demand, either because of the reduced appetite or the malabsorption, weight loss is going to follow. So, argument's sake, you need 2,000 calories per day just to maintain your general day to day. But if your body's, as an example, throwing in all of this extra stress and this metabolic change, and you're burning an additional 200 calories, but you're still only consuming 2,000 calories, you're in a 200 calorie deficit every single day, unintentionally. The 4th one is muscle loss. And we did touch on this on a couple of episodes ago. PSC, unfortunately, does create muscle wastage, muscle loss. Reduced protein absorption, altered protein metabolism, fatigue-driven sort of inactivity. When that fatigue's high, you don't have the want, the need, and the drive to train. And over time, when all of those sort of contribute towards each other, you're going to have muscle wastage. However, here's the important distinction, right? When people notice unintentional weight loss with PSC, they sometimes assume it's fat loss. But unfortunately, a lot of the time it can be muscle. Or it could just be a combination of both. And muscle loss is more significant than the number on the scale. Okay? Because muscle affects immune function, your metabolism, strength, energy regulation, and as I mentioned before, sort of those outcomes with having the liver disease. If you're losing weight unintentionally, it is worth asking. It is worth asking your GP, but it could also be more beneficial to speak directly to your hepatology team. Depending on the facilities that you got, you could get a DEXA scan or some form of body composition assessment. Not obviously just tracking weight on a scales, because you need to understand what you're losing, because that matters most. It's pretty basic in the sense as well that take a photo every 3 to 4 weeks in your pants or whatever. You don't have to share it with anybody. Take a photo, because you'll be able to see as well where your body is changing, and then that will also help you understand what is changing, and you can also share that with either your GP or your hepatology team, because they will then also be able to help point you in that right direction. And as well, you can always reach out to me. Everything that ever gets shared with me remains safe and confidential. And even if it is something that you're struggling with and you just want to learn more about it, please by all means reach out. Best place to get me is Instagram at PSC Fit. So, now I've kind of bored you to death with all of that. The next kind of question is, like, what do you do about it? So, firstly, as I sort of said, speak to your hepatology team, because unintentional weight loss is a clinical symptom that does warrant investigation and monitoring. Okay, try not to manage it in isolation. So, again, for context, as I said at the start of the episode, when I had that period of that sort of 6 to 8 weeks with losing around 8 kilos, I spoke to my hepatology team. They reviewed my diet, my fluids, medication. I had various bloods done, and then I had a gastroscopy, so camera down the throat, not all the way down as you would with a endoscopy, a gastroscopy. So yeah, it really is worth having that conversation. And then you could also consider speaking to a dietitian who has experience with liver disease, and obviously more PSC nutrition specific. A general dietitian is going to be better than nothing, but a liver specialist dietitian is obviously going to be better, in the same sense that your hepatology team is going to be far more equipped to support you with your PSC than your GP. Thirdly, prioritize your protein intake. Even if your appetite is low, protein is definitely going to be the most important macronutrient for preserving your muscle mass, and small amounts frequently rather than larger meals. So, your eggs, your fish, your yogurt, your protein shakes, wherever you kind of can get it. Just as a sort of sidestep there with fish, dietary recommendations is having 1 piece of oily fish a week. Salmon is probably going to be one of the best oily fishes to eat. However, salmon is quite heavy in fat, so please do bear that in mind. So, something that I do, I typically will only eat white fish, but then I'll supplement with a cod liver oil and like an omega-3 sort of supplement. The fourth one, resistance training. Again, even light resistance training sends a signal to your body to preserve muscle. Never has to be heavy, and it doesn't even have to be a long session. As long as you're putting stress under the muscle, that signal to your body is what we want. And then the last one, track your weight regularly. Do not obsess over it, and I cannot stress that enough. Do not obsess over your weight because it's always going to fluctuate. And unfortunately, women, yours is going to fluctuate a little bit more because of your period, or if you're further on in life, what am I looking for? Menopause. Christ, you would think I'm going for the flipping menopause. How my brain fog is today. But yeah, look to try and do it maybe once a week or once every fortnight at the same time in the same sort of conditions, so the same clothes. So you have more accurate data rather than just trying to guess. Excuse me, if that picked up on the microphone, I'm really sorry because that burp was a long time coming. And then when to be, I guess, more concerned, it's kind of if you're losing more than a few sort of kilograms over a short period of time, so 1 to 2 kilograms within like a 2-week period. Hence why I went to speak to my hepatology team, because something wasn't right. Okay, and it does genuinely prompt medical attention. So another thing, the weight loss accompanied by, changes in your symptoms, so yellowing of the eyes, of sort of your skin, or new abdominal pain, again, is another clear indication for you to reach out and get that help and that support, because PSC is a condition that does genuinely need medical monitoring. And again, this episode is more about the understanding of what is happening, not replacing that monitoring. Okay, think of me as your Robin to the Batman. Okay, Batman is your hepatology team. I'm Robin. I like that little comparison. I've never looked at myself as Robin before. I like it. I might see if I can get a little ChatGPT image of that. Leave that one with me. So yeah, if you're losing weight and you haven't told your hepatology team, please tell them. Okay, that is the most important takeaway from today. So, rounding off today's episode, unintentional weight loss with PSC is common. It is under-addressed, and it's driven by those specific mechanisms that are genuinely worth understanding and not just accepting as like part of the condition. So if this episode described anything that you've been experiencing, please mention it to your hepatology team at your next appointment or right now. Call them, email them, however you communicate with them. Share that information with them. And I would really appreciate if you could share this episode with another PSC warrior, because there is going to be someone else who is going to need to hear this. They might not have the right information. They might not know who I am. They might not know who or what PSC Fit is. So I really encourage and beg for you to share it with these other people, because it genuinely will help. So looking forward into next week, we're going to be going back to the movement pillar, and we're going to be looking at the good old do I train or do I rest question. That is the most common daily dilemma for most PSC warriors. And if you don't know it, the framework that I've built takes less than a minute every single day, and it will help you make that decision. So as always, subscribe, share, and I'll see you next week. Peace.